driving, working, exercising, or simply taking a quiet moment for yourself, I'm truly grateful that you're here. Today's episode is titled Heal Your Wounds: How to Let Go of Emotional Pain and Rebuild Your Life. This is a topic that touches every one of us because, whether we admit it or not, we've all experienced emotional pain at some point in our lives. Maybe you've been hurt by someone you trusted. Maybe you've gone through heartbreak, rejection, failure, disappointment, or the loss of someone you deeply loved. Perhaps you're carrying painful memories from childhood, or you're struggling to forgive yourself for mistakes you've made. Emotional wounds come in many forms, and unlike physical injuries, they're often invisible, yet they can affect every area of our lives. The truth is, emotional wounds don't simply disappear with time. If we ignore them, they often continue to influence the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we respond to the people around us. They can steal our confidence, damage our relationships, create anxiety, and prevent us from becoming the person we were meant to be. But here's the good news: healing is possible. Healing doesn't mean forgetting the past or pretending the pain never happened. It means learning how to face your emotions with courage, understanding your experiences, and choosing to move forward instead of allowing your past to define your future. Throughout this episode, we'll explore what emotional wounds really are, why healing can feel so difficult, and most importantly, practical steps you can start taking today to begin your healing journey. We'll talk about forgiveness, self-compassion, emotional resilience, and how small daily choices can lead to lasting inner peace. If you've been feeling emotionally exhausted, overwhelmed, or stuck, I want you to know that you're not alone. Millions of people carry silent battles every single day. The fact that you're listening to this episode tells me that you're already taking an important step toward healing and personal growth. So, wherever you are right now, take a slow, deep breath. Give yourself permission to be present. Open your heart and your mind, because the next few minutes could inspire a new perspective and remind you that your pain does not define your future. Let's begin this journey together and discover how healing your wounds can become the first step toward living a happier, healthier, and more fulfilling life. Now that we've set the stage, let's begin by understanding what emotional wounds really are. When most people hear the word wound, they immediately think of a physical injury, a cut, a bruise, or a broken bone. Physical wounds are visible, and we usually know how to treat them. Emotional wounds, however, are different. They can't be seen with the naked eye, yet they can be just as painful and, in many cases, even more difficult to heal. An emotional wound is the lasting psychological pain caused by a distressing or traumatic experience. It may come from a single event, such as losing someone you love or experiencing a painful breakup. It can also develop over many years through repeated experiences like criticism, rejection, neglect, bullying, or feeling unloved or unappreciated. The challenging part about emotional wounds is that they don't always disappear just because time has passed. Some people carry emotional pain for years without realizing how much it's affecting their lives. They learn to function, smile, and move forward on the outside while quietly struggling on the inside. So, where do these emotional wounds come from? For many people, they begin in childhood. A child who constantly feels ignored, compared to others, or criticized may grow up believing they are never good enough. Those beliefs can follow them into adulthood, shaping their confidence, relationships, and even career choices. For others, emotional wounds develop later in life. A painful divorce, betrayal by a trusted friend, the loss of a loved one, financial hardship, being laid off from a job, or repeated failures can leave emotional scars that are difficult to forget. Sometimes the wound isn't caused by one major event at all. Instead, it's the result of many small experiences that slowly build over time: being overlooked, feeling unsupported, constantly doubting yourself, or living under ongoing stress. Individually, these moments may seem minor, but together they can have a significant impact on your emotional well-being. Now, here's an important question. How do you know if you're still carrying unresolved emotional pain? The signs aren't always obvious. You may find yourself reacting very strongly to situations that seem small. A simple disagreement or criticism might leave you feeling deeply hurt or defensive. That's often because an old wound has been triggered, not just the current situation. Another sign is finding it difficult to trust people. If you've experienced betrayal or disappointment before, you may build emotional walls to protect yourself. While those walls can feel safe, they may also prevent genuine connection and healthy relationships. Some people constantly seek approval from others. They feel that their worth depends on being accepted, praised, or validated. No matter how much they achieve, they still feel as though they're not enough. Others avoid difficult conversations or suppress their emotions because they're afraid of being hurt again. They may say, "I'm fine," even when they're carrying heavy emotional burdens inside. Unresolved emotional pain can also show up as anxiety, persistent sadness, irritability, fear of failure, low self-esteem, or the feeling that you're simply going through the motions without truly enjoying life. The important thing to remember is that these reactions don't mean you're weak. They often mean that a part of you is still waiting to heal. Recognizing these signs isn't about judging yourself. It's about becoming more aware of what's happening beneath the surface. Awareness is powerful because you can't heal what you don't acknowledge. The moment you recognize that an emotional wound exists is often the moment healing truly begins. It's the point where you stop blaming yourself for every emotional struggle and start asking a much healthier question. What happened to me, and what can I do to move forward? In the next part of this episode, we'll explore why emotional healing can be so difficult and why so many people remain stuck in their pain even when they genuinely want to move on. Now that we understand what emotional wounds are and how they can affect our lives, let's talk about something many people struggle with. Why is healing so difficult? If healing is possible, why do so many people stay stuck in emotional pain for months, years, or even decades? The answer isn't because people are weak. It's because emotional healing requires us to face the very feelings we've been trying to avoid. Let's start with one of the biggest obstacles: the fear of facing our emotions. Many of us grow up hearing phrases like, "be strong," "don't cry," "move on," or "forget about it." While these words may be well-intentioned, they can teach us that showing emotion is a sign of weakness. So instead of processing our pain, we bury it. We distract ourselves with work, social media, endless entertainment, or staying constantly busy. We convince ourselves that if we don't think about the pain, eventually it will disappear. But emotions don't simply vanish because we ignore them. Think of emotional pain like a warning light on a car's dashboard. Covering the light doesn't fix the problem, it only hides the signal. In the same way, avoiding painful emotions doesn't heal the wound. It simply delays the healing process. Another reason healing can be difficult is because many emotional wounds begin in childhood. Our earliest experiences shape how we see ourselves and the world around us. If you grew up feeling loved, supported, and encouraged, you likely developed a strong sense of security. But if you experienced constant criticism, rejection, neglect, or unpredictable environments, those experiences may have left emotional scars that still influence you today. As children, we often don't have the emotional tools to understand difficult situations. Instead, we create stories about ourselves. A child who is frequently criticized may begin to believe, "I'm never good enough." A child who feels abandoned may grow up believing, "people always leave." Someone who experiences repeated rejection may quietly tell themselves, "I don't deserve love." Over time, these beliefs can become deeply rooted. They start to feel like facts, even though they were born from painful experiences, not from the truth. This brings us to another major obstacle: limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs are negative assumptions we carry about ourselves, other people, or life in general. They often operate in the background without us realizing it. You might hear thoughts like, "I'm not smart enough," "I'll never succeed," Everyone eventually hurts me. I always fail. I don't deserve happiness. The more we repeat these thoughts, the more they shape our decisions. We hesitate to pursue opportunities, avoid healthy relationships, and settle for less than we're capable of. Not because we lack potential, but because we've accepted false beliefs as truth. The good news is that beliefs can be challenged and changed. Just because you've believed something for years doesn't mean it has to define the rest of your life. Finally, let's talk about the impact of avoiding pain. Avoidance may bring temporary comfort, but it often creates long-term suffering. Some people avoid difficult conversations because they're afraid of conflict. Others refuse to think about painful memories, hoping they'll disappear on their own. Some turn to unhealthy habits or constant distractions to escape uncomfortable feelings. While these coping mechanisms may offer short-term relief, they rarely solve the deeper issue. Imagine having a splinter in your hand. Ignoring it doesn't remove it. In fact, leaving it there can lead to more pain and infection. Emotional wounds work much the same way. The longer they're left untreated, the more they can affect your thoughts, relationships, confidence, and overall well-being. Healing begins when we stop running from our pain and start facing it with honesty and compassion. That doesn't mean reliving every painful moment or pretending healing happens overnight. It means giving yourself permission to acknowledge what happened, to feel your emotions without shame, and to recognize that your past experiences do not have to determine your future. Remember this: facing your pain isn't a sign that you're falling apart. It's often the first sign that you're finally beginning to heal. In the next segment, we'll explore practical, everyday steps you can take to begin healing your emotional wounds and building a stronger, healthier version of yourself. Now that we've talked about what emotional wounds are and why healing can be so challenging, let's focus on something even more important: how to begin healing. The truth is, healing doesn't happen overnight. There isn't a magic formula or a quick fix that erases emotional pain. Healing is a journey made up of small, intentional steps. Every step you take, no matter how small, moves you closer to peace, freedom, and a healthier version of yourself. Let's explore some practical ways you can begin that journey today. Step 1. Accept your emotions. The first step toward healing is to allow yourself to feel. Many people believe they have to stay strong all the time. They tell themselves things like, "I shouldn't be sad anymore," or "I need to get over this." But healing doesn't begin by pretending you're okay. It begins by honestly saying, "I'm hurting." It's okay to feel sad after losing someone you love. It's okay to feel disappointed after failing. It's okay to cry after experiencing rejection or heartbreak. Your emotions are not your enemy. They are messages telling you that something inside needs attention. Instead of judging your feelings, try observing them with curiosity. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What is this emotion trying to teach me? When you stop fighting your emotions, you begin creating space for healing. Step 2. Practice self-compassion. One of the biggest obstacles to healing is the harsh voice inside our own minds. Sometimes we're kinder to strangers than we are to ourselves. After making a mistake, we say things like, "I'm such a failure," or "I always ruin everything." But imagine if your best friend came to you feeling broken. Would you respond by criticizing them? Probably not. You would encourage them. You would remind them that everyone makes mistakes, and that one difficult season doesn't define their entire life. Now ask yourself this question: why don't you deserve that same kindness? Self-compassion means treating yourself with patience, understanding, and grace. It doesn't mean making excuses or avoiding responsibility. It means recognizing that you're human. Healing becomes much easier when you replace self-criticism with self-respect. The way you speak to yourself matters. Your inner voice has the power to either deepen your wounds or help them heal. Step 3. Forgive yourself and others. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. Many people think forgiving someone means saying that what happened was acceptable. It doesn't. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, excuse harmful behavior, or remove accountability. Instead, forgiveness is choosing to stop carrying the emotional burden that someone else's actions placed on your shoulders. Holding on to resentment is like carrying a heavy backpack everywhere you go. The longer you carry it, the more exhausted you become. Forgiveness isn't about setting someone else free. It's about setting yourself free. And don't forget one of the hardest forms of forgiveness: learning to forgive yourself. Maybe you regret a decision. Maybe you trusted the wrong person. Maybe you missed an opportunity. Remember this: you made the best decision you could with the knowledge and emotional strength you had at that time. You cannot change yesterday, but you can choose how you live today. Forgive yourself, learn from the experience, and keep moving forward. Step 4. Journal your thoughts. One of the simplest yet most powerful healing tools is writing. Journaling gives your emotions a safe place to exist. Sometimes our thoughts become so tangled inside our minds that we can't clearly understand what we're feeling. Writing slows everything down. You don't have to be a professional writer. No one has to read your journal. Simply write honestly. Ask yourself questions like, what am I feeling today? What triggered this emotion? What lesson can I learn from this experience? What am I grateful for despite my challenges? Over time, you'll begin noticing patterns. You'll recognize emotional triggers. You'll celebrate progress that you may have otherwise overlooked. And most importantly, you'll develop a deeper understanding of yourself. Step 5. Seek support. Healing is not something you have to do alone. One of the biggest lies emotional pain tells us is that nobody understands us. The truth is, asking for help is a sign of courage, not weakness. Talk to someone you trust. It could be a close friend, a family member, a mentor, or a qualified mental health professional. Sometimes healing begins with a simple conversation. Other times, we need guidance from someone who can help us process experiences we've been carrying for years. There is strength in reaching out. You don't have to carry every burden by yourself. Allow others to remind you that hope still exists, especially on the days when it's difficult to see it yourself. Step 6. Build healthy daily habits. Healing isn't only emotional, it's physical and mental as well. The small choices you make every day have a powerful impact on your emotional well-being. Try getting enough sleep, eat nourishing food, stay physically active, spend time outdoors, practice mindfulness or quiet reflection. Reduce the amount of negativity you consume online. Read books that inspire growth. Listen to uplifting podcasts. Spend time with people who encourage you instead of draining your energy. You don't need to transform your life in one day. Start with one healthy habit, then add another. Small daily improvements create remarkable changes over time. Step 7. Celebrate small victories. Finally, don't forget to celebrate your progress. Many people focus so much on how far they still have to go that they forget how far they've already come. Maybe today you smiled after weeks of feeling hopeless. Maybe you finally had the courage to say no to something unhealthy. Maybe you reached out for help. Maybe you got through the day without letting fear control your decisions. Those are victories. Healing isn't measured by perfection. It's measured by progress. Every step forward matters. Every lesson matters. Every moment you choose hope over despair is evidence that you're growing stronger. Remember, healing is not about becoming the person you were before the pain. It's about becoming someone wiser, stronger, more compassionate, and more resilient because of what you've overcome. As long as you're willing to keep moving forward, even one small step at a time, you are healing. In the next part of this episode, we'll look at inspiring stories and powerful lessons that remind us that even life's deepest wounds can become the foundation for incredible personal growth. As we begin wrapping up today's conversation, I want to leave you with something incredibly important. Healing isn't just a theory, it happens every single day. Around the world, ordinary people are overcoming extraordinary pain and rebuilding lives they once thought were broken forever. You may not know their names, but their stories remind us that hope is always possible. Imagine someone who spent years believing they would never recover after losing a loved one. At first, every day felt heavy. Even the smallest task seemed impossible. They questioned whether life would ever feel normal again. But little by little, they kept moving forward. They accepted support from family and friends. They allowed themselves to grieve instead of hiding their emotions. They found comfort in meaningful routines and discovered new ways to honor the memory of the person they had lost. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but it slowly became easier to carry. Eventually, they realized they weren't just surviving, they were living again. Now imagine someone who experienced a painful betrayal. They gave their trust to someone they deeply cared about, only to be left feeling hurt, disappointed, and emotionally exhausted. For a long time, they blamed themselves. They wondered if they had done something wrong or if they simply weren't enough. But as time passed, they realized something life-changing. Another person's choices do not determine your worth. They began rebuilding their confidence, setting healthier boundaries, and surrounding themselves with people who genuinely respected them. The betrayal became one chapter of their story, not the entire book. Then think about someone who faced repeated failures. Perhaps they lost a job, saw a business fail, or experienced rejection after rejection. At first, every setback felt like proof that success wasn't meant for them. But instead of giving up, they asked a different question. What can this experience teach me? That single question changed everything. Each failure became a lesson. Each lesson made them wiser. Each obstacle helped them grow stronger, more patient, and more resilient. Eventually, the experiences they once viewed as defeats became the very foundation of their future success. These stories remind us of an important truth. Pain may change you, but it doesn't have to define you. Adversity has a way of revealing strengths we never knew we had. When life is comfortable, we often don't realize how resilient we are. But during life's most difficult seasons, we discover courage we never thought existed, compassion we never knew we possessed, and wisdom that only experience can teach. This doesn't mean we should be grateful for every painful event. No one wishes for heartbreak, loss, disappointment, or trauma, but we can choose to grow through those experiences instead of remaining trapped by them. Sometimes the greatest transformation begins with the deepest wound. The people who inspire us most aren't usually the ones who have never struggled. They're the ones who refuse to let their struggles have the final word. And if you're listening today while carrying emotional pain, I want you to remember something. Your story is still being written. This chapter may be difficult, it may feel uncertain, but it is not the end of your story. Every sunrise is another opportunity to take one more step toward healing. Every decision to choose hope over despair is a victory. Every act of self-kindness is evidence that you're becoming stronger than yesterday. Believe that healing is possible because it truly is. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because you become stronger, wiser, and more capable of facing whatever comes next. As we come to the end of today's episode, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've talked about. We began by understanding what emotional wounds are and how invisible pain can quietly affect our confidence, relationships, decisions, and overall happiness. We explored why healing can be so difficult. Fear, childhood experiences, limiting beliefs, and avoiding painful emotions often keep us stuck longer than we realize. But we also discovered that healing is possible. It begins when we accept our emotions instead of hiding them. When we replace self-criticism with self-compassion. When we choose forgiveness, not because the past didn't matter, but because we no longer want it to control our future. We talked about the power of journaling, reaching out for support, building healthy daily habits, and celebrating every small step forward. Remember, Healing isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. It's about learning to carry your experiences with wisdom instead of allowing them to become chains that hold you back. If there's one message I hope you take away from today's episode, it's this. You are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by the choices you make from this moment forward. No matter how difficult your past has been, your future is still unwritten. Give yourself permission to heal. Give yourself permission to grow. Give yourself permission to believe that better days are ahead. Healing doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens one choice at a time, one conversation at a time, one act of courage at a time, and one day you'll look back and realize that the pain you thought would break, you actually helped shape the person you've become. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I truly appreciate you being here, and I hope this conversation has given you encouragement, clarity, and hope for your own healing journey. If this episode inspired you or helped you in any way, I'd love for you to support the podcast. Please subscribe so you never miss future episodes focused on personal growth, emotional wellness, mindset, and living your best life. If you know someone who may be struggling with emotional pain, share this episode with them. Sometimes a single conversation can make all the difference. And if you enjoyed today's discussion, please take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback helps this podcast reach more people who may need encouragement and hope. Until next time, remember this. Your wounds may be part of your story, but they do not have to write your ending. Keep believing. Keep growing. Keep healing. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next episode.